Welcome back to SleeplessRonin Plays. I'm SleeplessRonin, and today we're going to be doing another ranking video. This time, I'm going to be covering the 30 mechs of the Inner Sphere in Technical Readout 3067. This is the technical readout that kind of covers the time period from the Fedcom Civil War through to the early beginning movements of the Jihad. The weird thing is I have a feeling just by my quick refresher over this book that the mechs are not going to really fall so much in the middle category as they're going to fall to either the upper or the lower categories. And talking about the categories, let's discuss what those are right now. We have up the top, Superior. These are for the best of the best mechs. Then we have Awesome. These are the ones that are excelling at something. I mean, we will say excelling at something because sometimes they'll be excelling as a sniper, excelling as a scout, excelling as a brawler, just as long as the mech is above and beyond. Then in the middle we have Basic. This is a mech. It doesn't have any significant downsides, but at the same time it doesn't have any significant upsides. Then we're going to have Craptastic. These are mechs with significant flaws. Not 100% crippling flaws, but significant flaws. And then there's Depressing. And these mechs are mechs that are so poorly designed, thought out, laid out, or whatever, that you honestly begin to wonder why they even exist. They are either bad at their role, I mean abysmally bad at their role, or they're just terrible overall all-rounders. So, let's jump right in. First up is the RDS-2A Redshift. The Redshift is a new design being fielded by the Word of Blake, and it is a scout. Plain and simple. Its primary loadout consists of a Guardian ECM and a tag system. The Guardian ECM in some variants is replaced with a Beagle Active Probe, and in other systems the tag and the Beagle Active Probe are both ripped out and have a C3I system installed in their place. That, of course, as far as I'm concerned, is the best variant. The basic loadout consists of 2 medium pulses, 1 in each arm, which I don't really like all that much, or the C3I version contains 4 ER medium lasers. I like that one more, because it does mount 10 double heat sinks, so positive there. And it moves at 914 speed because it has a 180 XL engine. It's running both ferrofibrous armor and Indosteel for more weight saving capacity since the thing only weighs 20 tons. It has more armor than a Stinger or a Wasp from 3025, so that's positive. Overall, that's for a scout, especially the C3I variant, and I should mainly just be dealing with the variants in the book, the 2A, but in general, overall, this is a very competent scout. I'm going to say it's actually going to be awesome. I didn't like the arm weapons only. I like to have something torso mounted, but at the same time, very flexible, very fast, well armored, and it does its job. So, good mech. Next up is a mech I find to be actually very hilarious. Is the LDT-1 Brigand. This is a mech built by pirates for pirates. Most of the variants of it, if you actually go into like Sarna or someplace like that and look up the variants, consist of bizarre little small things, one-offs, castaways, failures, and stuff like that, because this mech was obviously built outside of a normal factory setting, let's just say. If you actually read this thing's entry in the book, it's hilarious. I may throw it up behind me. It has things like jump jets, contraband, communication system, contraband, targeting and tracking system, contraband. These are stolen goods. This thing's just being equipped with stolen parts. It's hilarious. The armor actually has a maker model number, Haven Sent. Yay. And the manufacturer is called Vengeance Incorporated. I personally just love the fluff around this mech. It's hilarious. And even better, this is a competent design. It's a 25-tonner that moves 696, so essentially the same pace as the older 3025 era Wasp and Stinger, so a good, not fast, but not slow, light mech pace. It's a middling light mech pace. It has 64 points of armor, so again, that's more than that's competent. That's competent armor for its weight class. It could be a bit heavier, but it's not terrible. And it has 10 double heat sinks. So I mean, come on, at this point in time, if this is 3067, even pirates are installing double heat sinks in their mechs. So if I find a mech in here that's got singles, I'm going to look at it quite askance. So what's this thing have for weapons? Well, it's honestly another light. It's good at killing light mechs. It's got 2 ER medium lasers, 2 medium pulse lasers. This is good. This thing can run and fire all of its guns without overheating at all. If it jumps, it only goes at 4 heat points, which just means you lay off one of those guns next turn to cool down. This thing can chase other light mechs around the battlefield and be a significant harasser. If it somehow ends up in a place that's dealing with a heavier mech, it does have enough to make the heavier mech, be a bit wary, because that is enough to do, if it hits everything, to cause a piloting check. So for a light mech, it's a solid little mech. I'm going to classify this hilarious design as awesome, and I do find it hilarious. This one, I hope to see someday in a Catalyst Kickstarter or whatever for the plastics, just because having a pirate mech specifically for pirates is very funny. Now, that doesn't mean that some designs of it haven't fallen into place like the Tarian Concordat, but still, nonetheless, it's a pirate mech for pirates by pirates. Pirate approved. Next up, we have the ABS 3L Anubis. If you can't tell by the numbers, it sounds like a Liao mech. And it's a weird one, because if you look at the picture, which is obviously on the screen already, those arms look like they should each have a weapon in them, but they don't. As a cost-saving measure, the arms are just duplicated, even though one lacks all the internals to actually give it an ER small laser. Yeah, they couldn't find the extra half a ton to give this thing a second ER small laser. So, what is this thing? Well, it's a 30-tonner, and it moves 812. Okay, that's actually not bad at all. It's got a 240 XL engine. It's running Indosteel and Hellspawn light stealth armor, which means it has a Guardian ECM built in. Of course, it also means you can take those 10 double heat sinks and pretend they're 10 singles, because if you're running stealth, you're already generating 10 points of heat. For weaponry, it's got 4 LRM-5s and a single ER small laser. The 4 LRM-5s are sadly well under ammoed. This thing has only got 24 shots for 4 LRM-5s. That means you're going to be out in 6 rounds of firing if you're firing full capacity, which is not great. And for a speedy little mech like this, it has standoffish weapons, which seems kind of weird. Now, there is a mentioned variant which replaces the LRMs with one of the newer weapon systems in this book called the rocket launcher. Rocket launchers are one-shot weapons, but unlike SRM one-shots, they don't suck. They're actually interesting because their values go like 10, 15, 20 and up, and they just get big. They're like big launchers, and they're dumbfire missiles, so they have a negative to hit, but they have sizable racks if you do hit with them, and they don't weigh very much. I mean, like, they are lightweight systems. I mean, I think the 10 rack weighs half a ton. So compare that to like an SRM-2 one-shot, where you get one shot of 2 missiles that weighs like 1.5 tons. That's bad. The rocket launchers are acceptable weapon systems. They're not bad. They're great ways to fill in like a little bit of extra tonnage for a one-shot, oh good, I have an amazing modifier, like this guy's got a move 0 system, or maybe he's knocked down an immobile or whatever. Hey, now look at me go. I've got my rocket launchers doing some real significant damage right here. So, rocket launchers are not a bad weapon system at all. They're comparable to an MRM that doesn't have any reloads. So, they don't have the exact same ranges, but hey, you know, we can't have everything in the world. Now, the Anubis has many more variants aside from the one listed in the book, the 3L and the 3R. Some of them are a lot more competent than the base book one. They do things like pulling out the LRMs and replacing them with energy weapons, and some of them carry, I mean, even later era ones carry MMLs, or multiple missile launchers, which can switch between SRM and LRM loadouts, which are really cool. So, but based upon the evaluation of the mech in this book, I actually think the Anubis comes off as pretty darn craptastic. It doesn't have enough ammo to be a good long-range support mech, and it's very speedy with an ECM that you're using for stealth, which is being in stealth while you're firing the LRMs is A-okay. That's actually pretty good because you'll have a good defensive modifier while you're at long range, and you don't need to be moving as much. The problem is once you're out of LRMs, you're down to a single ER small laser on a 30-ton mech that has a Guardian ECM system that you probably will be turning off to be negating something they're doing. It's a lot less quality of a mech. It's got serious downsides. So the Anubis is going to be craptastic. Next up, we have the Osiris. OSR 3D. This one is another 30-tonner that moves at 812, but it can also jump, but it only jumps 4. It's a very weird jump number. I mean, I'd have preferred 5, because at least 5 gives you the next modifier up for the defense, your movement modifier. So 812-4 feels bad. It could be better with an 812-5. Or an 812-7 or something. Or just not even put jumps on it if you're going to do a 4. That seems like a waste of 2 tons. You could do something better with that weight. It has 10 double heat sinks. So far, every light mech in the book, including the pirate mech, has had double heat sinks. Yay. That's a check mark of quality so far. But let's take a look what the Osiris has for guns. Since we think it's a bit weird, I'm thinking the movement profile is a touch weird on this thing. Let's look at the guns. Oh, sorry. It has 81 points of ferrofibers armor, so that's a good thing. It also has Indosteel. Yay. It mounts 4 ER medium lasers. No, sorry. 5 ER medium lasers, a single machine gun, and an SRM-6 rack. Okay, that's actually pretty heavily loaded out for a 30-ton Inner Sphere mech. This thing has got some equipment to deal with. So, that's actually good. The problem is it's way under heat sinked. The ER medium lasers alone are generating 25 points of heat, so it can't even compensate for its primary energy weapons loadout. I would have probably ripped out the machine gun and the ammo and the jump jets for 3 additional heat sinks. That way I could at least cover all my ER medium lasers when I'm walking. The main variant of the mech mentioned in the book rips out the SRM-6 rack, which I like. I left that in, and the machine guns to increase the jump jet. So again, like I said, that's actually good in this case. They're actually improving the jump capacity of it, which it needs. But then I think they swap in, yeah, it says it swaps in some more medium pulse lasers, so it gets even more energy weapons that it can't compensate for the heat level of. It has some issues, but this is honestly, this might be one of our few basic mechs. This one feels like a very middling design. It's impossible to heat properly, or without sacrificing a significant amount of your weaponry, you can't run the heat sinks properly on it. And it's got a weird movement profile. But none of that actually makes me feel like it's crap. Like it's under ammoed or it's things. Now, it is a bit light in the armor, so there is that issue. You know what? With the light armor, the weird movement profile, and the overheating, I am going to actually have to put this thing in the craptastic category. It could be a lot better than what it is. If any one of those 3 issues was handled properly, it'd be a basic mech. But since it has 3 failing issues, it is going to be downrated. Next up, the RZK-9S Razorback. This is a Lyran mech for the LAAF. And it actually looks really cool. This is one of the art ones I actually like a lot in the book. Actually, of these first 4 designs, I don't really dislike any of the artwork. So, that is an improvement over some of the prior technical readouts. The artwork in this one is so far looking good. That will change. Trust me, that will change. This is one of the designs I actually overall like the look of quite a lot, and have always liked the look of this mech. So, this is a 690 30-tonner. So, we're back to more like a standard light mech's averaging speed. It's not slow in the 5.8 or lower category. It's not fast at a 7.11 or faster category. It has a significant amount of armor compared to the last mech. It's got a lot more. It's got 105 points, so it's actually pretty well covered. Most locations are fully covered, like the arms and legs have 100% armor coverage, so that's actually good on this thing. Where it's a bit weird is this mech has got like a dual role purpose to it, which is not bad. It's got an ER large laser for sniping, and it's just going to be throwing an ER large downrange at points in time. It's got 10 double heat sinks, so the ER large is not even a problem on this thing. It's combined with a Streak SRM-4 rack and 4 machine guns. This thing can't overheat, which is actually a good thing. I mean, its maximum heat will not even get close to overheating. It won't take overheating problems until like heat sinks are broken or it takes engine hits. And since it has a light engine by the way, which is awesome because it has weight savings combined with the not dying to a side torso loss, just extra heat from a side torso loss. So, yeah, our light engines are coming into play finally. Yahoo! So, it's got like anti-infantry purpose. The streaks are good for like finding holes and things you've opened up, but with bigger weapons. And it's got the sniper gun, so it's kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none. Although honestly, it will slaughter infantry with 4 machine guns. So, good looks, at acceptable speed, good armor coverage, and a acceptable loadout of weapons that feels a little bit weird, but not like bad. just not great. This is going to actually fall into... I'm going to put in the awesome category. It's getting bonus points for actually looking really cool. So, in this case, Rule of Cool is going to stand on this one, because that is a cool looking mech. And also, it's not bad in any way, shape, or form, so it's actually kind of awesome. It's a mech that you go, woohoo, this thing's on the field. It looks cool. Next up, the GUR-2G Gurkha. This is an early Word of Blake design again. This thing is a 35-tonner that moves 711 with a 245 XL engine. It's got Indo Steel and just standard armor. It's got 10 double heat sinks and 119 points of armor. So, pretty well covered. So, it's fast and armored. It has, for weaponry, 4 ER small lasers, a sword, which is cool, and an ER PPC and a C3I computer. So, once again, we have another C3 integrated network computer. So, very much a Word of Blake thing, because essentially the C3Is are designed to connect 6 mechs, of which a level 2 is 6 mechs. So it's really cool in that aspect. It looks pretty good. I mean, it's not terrible, although the legs don't connect to the hips quite right, it looks like in the picture. Still, in my opinion, the biggest downside of this thing is that ER PPC. It's extra heat you don't need to deal with in this thing. Which is why I prefer the variant that's talked about where they pull out the ER PPC for a large pulse laser, which I would much prefer to have anyways, because a large pulse laser is going to work much more in tandem with the sword. And unlike a lot of our earlier axe mechs, like the Hatchet Man and the Axe Man, where they put laser weaponry, that's like medium pulse laser sometimes, in the same arm as a melee weapon, which is a really bad design decision, this thing puts all the lasers in the other arm, one laser in the chest, and the other and no lasers in these sword hands. So you can essentially run up on something, blast it all day with your guns, and then hack it with your sword. That's good. This mech, because it's a light sword-wielding monstrosity, is actually going to be going in the awesome category because, darn it all, I like that. Next up is the STO-4A Stiletto, which is a pretty ugly-looking mech. It's actually pretty ugly looking because those tubes on the arm side right there, that's an SRM2 streak launcher on each of the arms. It's not lasers. Those are streak launchers. That doesn't look like a missile launch tube to me. Maybe torpedoes, I don't know, but this doesn't look like missile launchers to me. Okay, anyways, let's look at this thing. It's another 35-tonner, so it's comparing to the Gurkha. It's got less armor than the Gurkha. It's got a 280 light engine, so I'm going to give it props for having a light engine. That's actually pretty good design right there. And it moves 812. It's got 10 double heatsinks. Again, so far, every single mech in this book, all 7 of these mechs, we have checked off with light heat or with double heat sinks, which is good. Its armor is okay. It's a little bit lighter. Like I said, lighter than the Gurkha. Where this thing really falls apart, though, is its weaponry. It's got 2 Streak 2 launchers with a ton of ammo, an LRM-5 with a ton of ammo, and a Guardian ECM. The only positive piece of equipment on this thing, honestly, is the Guardian ECM. Aside from that, that is significantly undergunned for a 35-ton mech. I mean, this thing, if mounting for that weight savings, it could mount a couple basic medium lasers or ER medium lasers or something to make this high-speed mech feel like a competent mech. It's just not. It is really awful. There are variants of this thing that improve with ER large lasers and ER medium lasers, but this variant alone, the 4A Stiletto, is actually our first depressing design. I actually kind of just hate this mech overall right there. I find 0 redeeming qualities of it aside from the speed and the Guardian ECM. It's just worthless. Next up, the CMA-1S Chimera. So this mech, the Chimera, kind of came out of the lead-up to Operation Bulldog, the Comstar offensive that essentially goes in and just takes out Smokejack. So this was kind of like a joint operational effort design between the Draconis Combine and the Lyran half of the Federated Commonwealth. Maybe the entire Federated Commonwealth, if I was to associate with the Lyran half. Anyways, which is why this thing has an interesting collection of technology in it. It's our first medium. It's our first 40-tonner. It's got a 240 XL engine moving 696, so nice speed for it. It's got light armor, though. Its armor is actually less than the Gurkha we saw earlier, so that's an issue. Where it's interesting is what it's armed with. It has a machine gun with a half a ton of ammo. Meh. I just spent that ton on, honestly, more armor for this thing. It's got an ER large laser, an ER medium laser, and an MRM 20, or medium range missile 20. The medium range missile is a dumbfire missile system, but it's got a really good weapons bracket. They are harder to hit with, but they're a bulk weapon system. MRMs go all the way up to like MRM freaking 40 launchers. So, yeah. I mean, if you're being shot with an MRM 40, that's actually a pretty darn frightening thing. This guy only has an MRM 20, which is not the smallest one. The smallest ones are MRM 10s. That's its big gun, honestly, which sadly doesn't really pair up with the ER large laser. I mean, this thing doesn't have a massive heat problem. It's got 12 plus 6, 18. It does overheat a little bit because of the ER medium laser. So if this thing had been running a basic large laser with an MRM 20 and an ER medium, where everything's kind of fitting in the same range gap right there, it'd have been a much better mech. But it has that ER large laser, and the ER large laser is largely, it's worse than a large laser as far as I'm concerned. 50% heat for hexes of range. It's just not as effective. I prefer to have my weapons where they have better kill zones, let's say. And the Chimera is a little bit hot running for that. It's low in armor and it's hot running, but it mounts the MRM 20. I'm going to say the Chimera is going to be our first mech that's actually going to be basic, because it has a few flaws, but they're not like fully crippling flaws. Next up, the Sha Yu, SYU 2B. This is another Capellan design. It's billed as it's a built off the Raven chassis. Although if you look at the picture, I really don't see a Raven in this thing, so yeah, I guess it's got chicken legs. Whoopie-doo. Okay, this thing's another 40-tonner. It's a 711 with a 280 XL engine. It's got 13 double heat sinks, and it's going to need those 13 double heat sinks, as we're going to see, because it is equipped with light stealth armor. Or just stealth armor is what you can think of it as. Which means it has a Guardian ECM again, and once again, that means if it's running with its stealth armor on, it's already generating 10 points of heat. So those 13 doubles are only cooling 16 points of weapons fire and movement. Which is an issue for this thing, because what is it equipped with? 2 ER larges, 2 ER mediums, and a tag system. Even with stealth armor off, this thing is only firing 2 ER larges and running every turn to generate 0 points of heat. So it's hot. It's a very hot running mech. In fact, with stealth armor on and this thing alpha striking, you're generating 20 points of heat over your capacity if you're running. That's insane. That's just bad feeling. And worse than that, it has less armor than like the last 3 mechs we talked about. This thing barely has. This thing is under armored by a good amount. It's lightly armored. It cooks alive in heat. It's got good speed, but it's suffering. But it has an XL engine, so if it does lose a side torso, well, you're cooking alive even more now. Because of the heat issues combined with stealth armor, if you want to take advantage of the stealth armor, you're firing 1 ER large laser off this thing per turn without cooking. And I hate to say this, this is a depressing design to me. There are so many ways this could have been a better mech, and it is let down in a lot of ways. All it has going for it is good speed, and that's not enough. Next up, the B1 HND Bloodhound. The Bloodhound is an interesting mech because it's a Free Worlds League mech. It came out of the Free Worlds League kind of being paranoid over the Capellan Confederation doing stuff, the fact that Sun Tzu became the first Lord of the Reborn Star League, that kind of makes them paranoid, and so they invent the Bloodhound to kind of deal with like potential insurrections, or it's an anti-guerrilla mech, and so it's designed to, like, fight against like civilians, I guess, maybe, or infantry, which is interesting because it doesn't really have any anti-infantry weapon on the thing. But it's good at seeking things out. As a Bloodhound, it has one important piece of technology. It has a big galactic probe, so it's got a sniffer system essentially on it. It's looking for stuff. That's good. It fits its role. It's a 45-tonner, so it's our heaviest mech so far. It moves at 711 with a 315 XL engine. It's got 14 double heat sinks. Again, that is every mech in the book with double heat sinks. This is a good track right now. Good track. It's got it's got good armor. This one actually, unlike the Sha Yu beforehand, the Bloodhound is well armored. It's got 152 points, which means it's equivalent to a Shadowhawk, Wolverine, Griffin kind of thing from 30-25. It also weighs 10 tons less than those, so it's durable. This thing is looking at mostly 100% armor coverage, or really close to, in all locations. Like, the arms and legs are fully covered. Most of the torsos are at... I think the only point of armor I'm seeing missing on this thing is a single point of center torso armor that's not included, which, of course, would mathematically not be worth a half a ton for 1 point of armor. So, what does the thing come out for weapons? Well, it starts off with a nice, solid Streak SRM-6 launcher. SRM-6s are good. Streak SRM-6s are kind of also very good. Then it has, in addition to that, 3 ER medium lasers and an ER small laser. Okay, I can see that this thing is actually... This thing is weird because it is overly heat efficient. I know, that is a weird thing for me to say, isn't it? I'm usually complaining about mechs not being heat efficient. This thing is overly heat efficient. The 3R medium lasers generate 15 points of heat. The Streak 6 launcher generates 4 points of heat, so we're looking at 19. Then 2 more for the ER small, that's 21, with a run value, 23. This thing can cool 28. It can take an engine hit and still not be affected by heat while running. That is crazy. I mean, usually you see mechs that are going like, oh my goodness, if I run, I'm overheating. This Bloodhound is like, no, man. Well, I can take Inferno SRMs and keep going. Come on, give me the heat. I can take it. I can take it. So, I'm going to look at the positive. I'm also going to say this is the first mech I'm going to rate as superior. And not just because it's overheat efficient, but because this thing has got a good loadout of weapons that all kind of hit the same bracket area. It's well armored, and it's fast. And it does its job. It does its job. It's got a beagle-active probe to go out there and bloodhound things out. It's sniffing out things. So it does its job, and it checkmarks 3 other solid boxes. This is our first superior mech. It also looks pretty cool. Next up, the BLF-21 Blue Flame. This mech makes me sad because I'm a lover of quad mechs. I think they're amazing mechs. I like the way they look usually and what they can do. But this thing is an ugly, sad lizard bulldog thing that just isn't any good. It's a 45-tonner again with a 5.8 movement profile on a 225 light engine. Okay, I'm a big fan of light engines. It has Indo Steel, which that's good for it, but at the same time that's bad for it because you're saving 2 tons and you're in a quad, so you're losing now 14 critical slots, and that's a lot of criticals to lose. That's a lot of criticals to lose. And what's it going to do with this weight savings? Well, it's going to waste it. It's going to waste it big time. It's got a C3I computer, which is important because it is a Word of Blake mech. But it's got 2 ER large lasers paired to 10 double heat sinks. So once again, we're looking at a mech that is already generating 4 points of heat from its primary guns before even moving. Then in addition to that, it's got the unpredictability of having triple Streak SRM-2 launchers. I mean, I don't really have a problem with Streak launchers, because a Streak 4 weighs 3 tons, a Streak 2 weighs 1.5, and a Streak 6 weighs 4.5, so they all scale up, and since they always hit with all their missiles, they're kind of like dealer's choice on what you're going to use, as long as you're going to use the ammo properly. And with this thing having a 1 ton of ammo for 3 launchers, I'm okay with that. What I fundamentally dislike again, and it's something I dislike in a lot of mechs, I generally dislike ER large lasers unless they're well compensated for. And unfortunately, I don't like the compensation they cost for their damage at their range. It's the same issue I'm going to have with another weapon we're going to probably discuss down the line that I think I've discussed before also, the light Gauss rifle. I don't like it because it's a lot of weight to throw a large laser at 25 hexes. Nah, not a fan. I don't like them when I can throw a Gauss rifle for 3 tons more, only 3 hexes less. I will pay 3 tons to nearly double my damage and only lose 3 hexes of shot. Light Gauss rifles feel like a complete and total... They feel like a bad weapon system. If they'd done 10 damage, I think I could accept them. But doing 8 damage, I think that they are really kind of just too heavy for what they do. Same problem I have with a lot of AC2s and AC5 weapons is they tend to not do enough damage for their weight. But that's a complete and total aside. Back to the Blue Flame. This thing has not enough heat sinks to support its weapon systems, and then it has unpredictability of heat, so it's hard to predict what you're going to be at for heat for the next turn anyways. So overall, this is a lump of garbage. I mean, honestly, it's a depressing mech. Like I said, we're kind of going to the extremes here. We got 1 basic mech so far, 3 depressing mechs, 1 superior, 4 awesomes, and 2 craptastics. We're not seeing the middle ground in this book. And that's kind of the way I feel about a lot of these mechs from 3067. They don't know what a middle ground is anymore. They can't make an average mech. They make extremely good ones or extremely bad ones. Next up, the HSN, or the Home Shopping Network 7D Hellspawn. Because let's really consider that the Home Shopping Network is kind of like the spawn of hell. Anyways, this thing is another 45-tonner, so we're actually doing a lot of 45-tonners in this book, which is fine. It's got a 270 XL engine and moves at 696. It's got 104 points of armor, so again, that's lightly armored. That's kind of scary light armor, but it's almost acceptable for what this thing's main role is. This is essentially the security dog mech for a lance of long-range mechs like archers, longbows, and the like. Because the thing mounts 2 LRM-10s with a Guardian ECM, so it gets to help disrupt stuff around the lance of the heavier mechs with bigger LRM racks. And then it's got 3 medium pulse lasers to help fight like a light mech that comes in and like actually wants to deal with the bigger missile carriers. So it's got its role. This is a guard dog for a long-range lance. It can support that long-range lance because it has the 2 LRM-10s, but it's also got the point-blank weapons to deal with something that comes in, and the ECM. So this mech, while it's under-armored, and it thankfully does have 10 double heat sinks again, so the heat issue is not really too bad because you're probably going to be firing both the weapon loadouts all at the same time. Although if you do, as long as you don't jump, you're not too bad on heat either, so it's acceptable. This mech is... It's not awesome, but it's really, 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 truly competent. It's a very competent mech. I wish it had more armor, but, you know, it is what it is. That's its only real true downside is the lack of armor. Which they could have, you know, probably slapped some ferrofibrous into this thing, and that would have been better, but they didn't, so it's going to be our second basic mech. And I'm really glad we just walked through our second basic mech, because now we're getting to a mech that I look at and I stare at and I just wonder why. Is the TSN-1C Tessen. I like the name of it. That's the Iron Fan, the Iron Fan from Japan or whatever. Kind of like, you know, it's not just the flip open, you know, fan you can wave at yourself or whatever, which I've got a couple on my wall that I actually probably should have put down to flip around right now because they've been really kind of cool, but I didn't, so whoopsie-doo. Or whoopsie-doo, one or the other. Which kind of represents the fact this thing got these little fins on the side of it, which are the Tessens of what it's talking about. That's not the issue. I like the name. I like the name of this mech. What is weird about me is this is a joint design mech between Comstar and Kurita. So Kurita has a different variant that doesn't run the same technology, because the Comstar variant has a C3i computer. Okay, that's good. That is just fine. This thing, let's go back to this thing's a 6.9 profile with a 300 XL engine. Okay, that's acceptable. It's got 11 double heat sinks. Okay, I'm not going to object. And 161 points of armor. Okay, that's pretty good. What's it armed with? It has an ERPPC, a medium pulse laser, a tag system, the C3i computer, or in the case of the Kurita variant, a C3 slave computer. Which the Kurita one's better because it also slaps another medium pulse laser, so it's got more guns, but it still has the ERPPC problem. And it has an iNarc launcher with 4 tons of ammo. iNarcs are improved narc launchers. They have, thankfully, a better range, because the basic narc launcher's got a really crap range. The iNarc goes 4, 9, 15, which is better. It only has 4 shells per ton, so yay. It can still use explosive pods. It can use ECM pods. It can use the normal homing pod. It can use haywire pods and nemesis pods. So it's kind of flexible. And you can understand why there's 4 tons, because you might want to carry more than one loadout in this thing. It's It's just a weird feeling mech. Because you look at a 50-tonner, which I think was 50 tons, and you tend to think, oh, this thing's going to have some auto cannons or big lasers to back it up. And all this really thing is a high-speed, mobile scout mech with a PPC attached to it. An ER PPC attached to it. It's weird. I can't say it's crappy. I can't say it's awesome. And the reason I'm glad we're coming to another... I'd say we're leaving one basic and going another basic is because... this is kind of a basic scout. It feels like it's weird because it's very heavily armored. This thing can take quite a punishment with its 161 points of armor. So it's kind of like this thing's got its job on the field to do. It's just very heavy for its job, so it's weird. It's going to go in the basic category, which is fine. It's just, it feels like a weird mech to me. I kind of like the way it looks. It just feels weird. Next up is the Uziel 3S Uziel. It's another Lyran mech. It's a 696 with 300 XL, and it's another 50-tonner. It's low on the armor. It's only got 128 points to cover its 50-ton frame, so it's light. I mean, it's barely more than the Gurkha had. And then, what does it do with the weight savings of not putting on a significant amount of armor? Oh, it decides to throw the weight down a garbage hole. It has an LB2 XAC on this thing, and I'm sorry. That is an awful weapon. I don't care what you can do with it. I don't care. You may pop a helicopter out of the air at, very, very long ranges. I don't care that you might immobilize that hovercraft. You're still spending 7 tons on a weapon that is outputting, if you're firing on cluster, it's outputting 1 point of damage more than half the time. If you're not firing on cluster, it's a slightly lighter AC2 that's still putting a machine gun very far away, and who cares? I look at all the light bore ACs and just go, why do you exist? I can look at a Rack 2 and accept it because a Rack 2 is essentially like a very, very annoying machine gun array at good distance. That doesn't feel like it's being just awful. It's not great, but it's not awful. At least on average, it's doing like 6 points of damage or something like that on most Rack 2s when they're firing 6 to 8 points of damage. But an LB2 is doing 1 or 2 points of damage at best for a huge amount of weight. In addition, this thing has nothing else to back up the LB2's plinking. Its rest of its weapons are all close-range weapons, ER mediums, one of those, 2 ER smalls, a large pulse, and an SRM6 rack. There's nothing that says this thing should have spent the weight on an LB2. That weight should have been put into another large pulse laser, or some heat sinks, or a medium pulse and some heat sinks, or another ER medium and some heat sinks, or something, or anything to make this thing more of a concentration into what it is. The micro autocannon is a pile of garbage that drags this whole mech down, which is made worse by the fact that it has lightweight armor on this thing. It's not depressing mechs, it's just crap-tastic. But again, it does have double heat sinks, so that's every mech in the entire book so far. Next up, the CNS 5M Cronus. This is a weird mech because, in all truth, the variant in here is not the initial variant of the mech. The initial variant of the mech actually came out much earlier because the dude that invented it actually was a veteran of the Third Succession War. So it's a while back from 3067. And he made the Cronus when he started making money on repairing other mechs or something like that. I've read the fluff, but it's not all stuck. But the original basic variant essentially doesn't have all the advanced tech in it, but it's still actually a relatively good 3025 intro tech era mech, honestly. So maybe we'll get this on the next Kickstarter. That'd be kind of cool. It'd be a nice another mech to add into there. Still, the Cronus is this variant of the Cronus, the 5M one that's being sold across the all over the Inner Sphere, but probably primarily to Merrick, is a 696 55-tonner. So this thing's got a big XL engine in it of a 330 XL. So it's a fast 55-tonner. It's got 168 points of armor, so it's a little bit under maximum, but it's in that range where it's good enough. It's better than a 3025 era 55-tonner's armor, but it's not as good as what you could go to max to, which is like in the 180s. But it's still pretty darn good. This thing's got 14 double heat sinks, so yay. Unfortunately, that is paired to an ER PPC, so most of those heat is already being consumed by the ER PPC. It's got 2 more ER medium lasers. It's got an ER small, a Streak SRM4, and a C3 slave system. So actually, looking at that loadout with stuff, since you're not going to be fighting the streak all the time, if you're fighting just the ER mediums and the ER PPC, you're actually going to be pretty darn heat efficient because you are not going to be generating overheat as long as you don't jump. So it's actually got enough heat sinks to handle its weapon loadout. It's overall pretty good. My only real issue with this mech is the artwork. And I don't understand why those lasers are so gigantic. Or why the Streak SRM-4 in the center torso is apparently above the head. That's weird to me. It's just weird. Anyways, it's actually a pretty solid little mech. Got good speed, good armor, good weaponry. It just looks ugly. So it's an awesome mech. Go Cronus. Hopefully we'll get you in the next Kickstarter. Next up, the LG8 4W Lightray. The Lightray is a Word of Blake take on the Wraith as far as I'm concerned, because largely it's just like a Wraith, only no jumpies. It kind of looks like the Wraith a little bit too, in my opinion. Still, it's a 711-0 55-tonner, which means it has the largest 55-ton, largest engine you can stick in a 55-tonner, or of a 385 XL, which means that 40% of this mech's mass is still in the engine. Yeah. And yet at the same time, this thing mounts maximum armor. It is 100% armor coverage down this mech. In fact, if I did the math, I probably wasted a few points is my guess. But it's 100% armor coverage. So that's just awesome. It is ferrofiber, so that's a benefit. It has Indo-Steel. So this thing's running all the lightweight saving technologies. Ferrofibers, Indo-Steel, double heat sinks, XL engine, weight savings. And what does it get for weaponry? Well, it's got a large pulse laser. Like I said, it kind of looks like a Wraith a little bit. But instead of medium pulses, it's got 2 ER mediums. And it has an ER small laser, which has one more gun than the basic Wraith. But where it actually is a little bit better than the basic Wraith, even though the Wraith can jump, which is the Wraith's improvement over the Lightray, this one has a targeting computer. Large pulses that have a -3 to hit with. ER mediums that have a -1 to hit with. Okay, we're looking at some very accurate laser fire on this 55-tonner. It's not really heavy damage that's going downfield on it, but it's accurate damage, which is beneficial. The weird thing is, it doesn't have a C3I in it, which means to me it's a bit of a deficient version of the mech, at least the one in the book right here. If you're going into the Sarna or whatever you're reading about the variants that come out later on, there thankfully is the later variants that actually do run, 2 of the later variants do run C3Is, making them true core Word of Blake mechs, perfect to run inside of your Word of Blake level 2s. So, it does fix that little issue of not having the C3I connectivity. It's a fast mech. It's listed as a scout, but it doesn't have any scout tech in it. It just has accurate weapons. So it's kind of like a Vanguard mech. It's your first in, last out kind of thing. So it goes in, hits, harasses a bunch, and then gets that kind of dodge. When it gets the C3I, it's going to be even better because it will be able to go in and provide targeting data to its level 2 mates. So, yeah. It's a pretty darn awesome design as far as I'm concerned, because it's armored, it's fast, it's accurate, it's got good guns. It's a little bit heat inefficient, but not enough to make me unhappy about it, like heavily unhappy about it. It's just a little bit heat inefficient, but still overall, it's fast, it's armored, it's got guns, it's accurate, it's pretty awesome. Next up, the AGS 4D Argus. This is our first heavy mech in the book, weighing in at 60 tons. It's got a 300 XL engine moving at 580 with 12 double heat sinks. It's got 192 points of armor, which is not quite max, but it's pretty close, so it's solidly armored. It's not the most beautiful mech in the world, but it doesn't have to be because it carries the most beautiful gun in all of Battletech, the Rotary Autocannon 5. This is an amazing weapon. It's just, imagine having an SRM-6 launcher with variable tube amount that pitches things at 15 hexes down range and does 5 points per smack. Yeah, Rack 5s are glorious. And they pair up perfectly with large lasers with a 5, 10, 15 range. They pair up well with ER medium lasers with a 5, 10, 15 range. They work well with MRMs who don't have the exact bracket but do go out to 15 also. They work well with rocket launchers that also get out to the 15 bracket range. They work with LRM launchers because LRMs go out medium ranges at 14, so they pair up well because they have a good range bracket right there. They work okay with PPCs that go out to 6, 8, 6, 12, 18, because they've got a pretty close approximation of the ranges. It's a very flexible system that puts a lot of damage downfield. The only negative is you need to have a lot of ammo. As far as I'm concerned, for every rack 5, you need to have 3 tons of ammo, so you have 60 shells. 60 shells, when you're firing at 5, because you don't want to fire at 6. 6 has a higher chance of jamming, but 5 has the same chance of jamming as a 3 or a 4. It's got the second lowest chance of jamming, and outputs the most shells downfield. And if you know from LRM 5 rack, it's going to probably hit with 3 of those shells every time it fires 5 shells downrange. So you're talking 15 damage at 5, 10, 15. In groups of 5, of course, because they're rack 5 shells, pop, 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 pop. Very good gun. Very competent gun. Only weighs 10 tons for the gun itself. Generates 1 point of heat per shell fired, so it does 5 heat for an average of 15 damage at 15 hexes. It is a beautiful, beautiful gun, and the Argus mounts one. The Argus is the first mech we've seen here that mounts one, and that means this mech is superior to other 60-tonners as far as I'm concerned, because it has a rack 5. It also ties that rack 5 into a targeting computer, so the rack 5 is accurate and devastating. It has a Beagle active probe for reasons I honestly can't figure out on this thing. It's got an LRM-10, like I said, that pairs up pretty well with the rack 5. It's got an ER medium laser that pairs up, two ER medium lasers that pair up well with the rack 5. It can handle the heat because it's got 12 double heat sinks. It's got a machine gun for defending against infantry. Yeah, this mech is ready to go to town. It weighs 60 tons, and it's gonna bring the pain. So this little sucker, not the prettiest mech in the battlefield, but one of the most superior mechs of the battlefield as far as I'm concerned, with its glorious introduction of a well-bracketed, well-paired with rack 5. Next up, the NJT-2 Ninjato, named after the straight sword that the ninja would sometimes use, supposedly, I guess. This mech is very fast. It's a 65-tonner that moves at 6'9". So it's a 390 rated XL engine that weighs 23 tons. Again, it's a huge amount of the mech taken up by a giant engine, which I wouldn't object to if it had weaponry to take advantage of that giant engine. But instead, what does it mount? Well, let's start with, it has 12 double heat sinks. That's good. Everything in this book has had double heat sinks. 12 double heat sinks means 24 heat dissipation. So what are the primary 2 guns it has? 2 ER large lasers. Great. We move when we fire those, we're generating extra heat. Does it have any more guns? Oh, of course it has more guns. Because why possibly would this thing not have too many guns for its tiny amount of heat sinks when it's wasting so much heat on those ER large lasers? Now it has an MRM-10 and 2 ER medium lasers. Both those ER large lasers should have been downgraded to basic larges, because this thing wants to get up on enemy mechs, because it's a 6'9" speed mech. It's going to move fast and get up to get good targeting range. Why does it want to get good targeting range? Because the freaking thing has a C3 slave system in it, so it wants to tell its C3 master computer, and therefore its other Lance or company mates, the targeting range it's giving, targeting data it's giving to those other mechs. So it needs to be getting close. This thing having ER large lasers is not good. It has 192 points of armor, so it's a little bit down in armor, but not a lot down. Only maybe like 10% down or so. So it's actually pretty well armored. So it's got the armor. It's got the speed. It's got the C3 slave. What is it lacking? It's lacking the right weapons for that chassis. This thing is well-designed, heavy targeting mech that goes out there and seeks the enemy targets. And what do you give it? You give it long-range sniping weapons. Why? That is a bad loadout. It's not depressing, but it is craptastic. And it makes me unhappy. It makes me so unhappy that I almost want to put it depressing. I'm not going to, because it has a C3 slave, and that's enough to elevate it from depressing to only craptastic. And the reason why I want to pull it back down to depressing is because it seems to betray what that C3 slave should be doing. Also, the metal model for this thing is one of the most out of scale, gigantic, put it in a sock and kill someone with mech. Don't do that. Do not do what I just said. That was a joke. Seriously, the metal model for this thing is like fist size nearly. It's way, way, way too big. It's like bigger than 2 Atlases nearly. It's just so much excess metal. This one needs a Catalyst Kickstarter redesign badly. So it'll be smaller and look better. And maybe they'll get some versions in the recognition guides, if they're going to do recognition guides. Maybe they'll be doing mercenary recognition guides after the next one. That will give it some variants that don't make me unhappy. Next up, the VR5-R Verfolger. Verfolger is German for pursuer or tracker. This is a mech that I stare at the picture and I wonder what went wrong in the design process. Why do you have two completely different designed shoulders? Why do your hips look like they're non-functional? Why are you as thin as a piece of paper nearly? Why do you have all these excess spars on the side of your laser cannons? Or is that the autocannon? That's the autocannon. Why do you have these excess spars on the side of your autocannon? Where does that one shoulder go? Why are your medium lasers like really long protruding nipples? That's disturbing and shouldn't be there. And why? Just why? I mean, at least they're kind of like on rotational mounts. Looks like they can actually shoot in different directions. But at the same time, they're large and weird, and there are 3 of them, and it just looks strange. Okay, anyways, enough critique of the art on this one. The Verfolger is a 65-ton heavy mech with 200 points of armor, so yeah, pretty good armor. Not max, again, not maximum armor for the weight class. It's close, but not maximum. It moves at 5'8" with a 325XL engine, and it has 13 double heat sinks, so you know, it's got some weight saving things. It has Indo-Steel armor as well, so that's good. Or an Indo-Steel frame, so that's good. Bit of weight saving there. And it's got... The problem with this mech is it's been done before. When I saw this, the weapons, you can essentially say, oh yeah, that's a Cataphractor. Oh yeah, that's a Caesar. It has an ERPPC, has an LB-10X, it's got 3 medium lasers, and an AMS. It's not unique. There's nothing about this mech that said, look at me, I'm special. I mean, it's been done to death. The fun thing about this mech is, there's a chance this will appear in the next Kickstarter because it is a Hellhound mech. So it's a mercenary mech. It's a very mercenary themed mech. So honestly, I'm hoping to see this drop into the Kickstarter because it is a mercenary mech. And please, can we get it to look better? I mean, the new artists are freaking fantastic. Get one of them to design it. I love the new artwork so much. It'd be great. And I hate to do this, but this mech is basic because it's not special. It's the same mech with a new skin on it that we've seen before, more or less. The only real benefit is, unlike the Cataphractor, it doesn't have rear-mounted lasers. All the lasers are in the front now. So, good. Still, we've seen it before. It's a very common FedCom kind of theme of big gun, big autocannon, go to town. Next up, the NDA-1K No-Dachi. Good name. Okay looking mech. I don't really like the shoulder missile launchers, but whatever. Okay, this is our first 70-tonner. It's a 5'8", 70-tonner, so it's got a 350XL engine. It's got 10 double heat sinks. That seems like a little bit low number of heat sinks, but it's alright. There's a reason why it's low on the heat sinks. It has an ERPPC, an SRM2, which I'm not a huge fan of, an SRM4. Again, weird that you've included both these because that means you're carrying way too much ammo. A medium laser, 2 MRM-20s, that's the big missile racks on the shoulders, and MRMs again are interesting. And then the piece de resistance, a sword coupled with triple strength Myomer. That's why the low heat sinks don't matter so much. This thing wants to run to 29 heat and then generate 20 heat evenly per turn. So whatever mathematical loadout that these weapons can give you 20 heat per turn, which is probably going to largely consist of not firing the freaking ERPPC. Although an ERPPC combined with a medium laser and running is 20 heat. So that is an option. But my God, please use up your ammo you're carrying way too much of. So try to find a different combination that's going to give you 20 heat. Because as long as you're maintaining those 9 points of heat, that sword is a mech killer. That sword is going to make things cry. And you're going to have fun with it. There's another version of this also that has a C3 slave in it. But yeah, this one right here makes me happy enough. I mean, this is a superior mech. TSM. You're going to be moving at 6'9". You're going to be slashing with a sword that's going to make things cry. And it's fun like that, so it's a good mech, other than the SRM2 and the SRM4 weirdness, which is probably done for heat, but I'm not going to do the math in my head right now. So, yeah, I'm going to call this a superior mech, because, darn it, that checks the boxes I like. It's a tiny touch low on armor, but not enough for me to complain about. Next up, we have the big brother of the Blue Flame, the WHF 3B Whiteflame. It's a 70-ton mech that also moves at 5.85 with an Indosteel chassis, a 350 light engine, so yay, that's going to save a couple criticals on the side torso of this quad, because it's a quad, which you can tell by the picture behind me. It's got really heavy armor. I mean, this thing, I think I'm looking at it again, this is maximal armor, including in all 4 legs, so each of those legs has 30 points of armor on it. This thing is a durable brick. It's got 233 points of armor on a 70-ton mech. It's a durable brick. What's this one armed with? Because remember, I was depressed, or not depressed. I was depressed by the Blue Flame. What is the White Flame armed with? Well, the White Flame has got a C3i computer also. Good. It has 11 double heat sinks. It has a large pulse, a medium pulse, and 2 ER medium lasers. And an AMS system with 2 tons of ammo. That's too much ammo. But it has one anyways. Okay. Large pulse plus 2 ER medium lasers is 20. Plus the medium pulse is 24 heat. So we're not able to handle all of our heat from our heat sinks. Plus your movement heat. But it's not like it's massively overheating. The biggest issue from this 70-tonner is that's not a lot of weapons output. It's not a lot of output of guns on this thing. But that's okay for this mech. Because this mech's job is to be a brick that is sitting there to gain targeting data for your other C3i mates. Because it's so heavily armored, and it's not going to go off my side torso engine loss, that this thing can be up there brawling with those pulses, giving the rest of your C3i compatriots your 1 or 2 hex range like targeting data. So they're sitting back there with, well, whatever Thunderbolt missile launchers they may have, or ER PPCs, heavy PPCs from later era, Jihad era mechs or whatever, or whatever, or LRMs, or ER large lasers, or Gauss rifles, and they're pelting this thing that you're brawling with as if they were right next to it also. So yeah, it does its job. It's actually going to qualify as awesome for that. Either it's underheated, it's underheat efficient. Its use of the light engine combined with massive armor and a C3i makes it awesome. Because this thing is a bull. This is the white. It's like a white lion-y thing. This thing is right up there to brawl and not die, which is awesome. Next up, the LHU 2B Lao Hu. That rhymes. That was not intentional. The LHU 2B Lao Hu. Okay, so 75-tonner. It's obviously a Capellan mech. The name, it's a 75-tonner. It's a 5.8 movement profile, so it's got a 375 XL engine. It's got 10 double heat sinks, and it's a bit weird in my opinion because it's got an LB-20X autocannon. Oh, big autocannon. It's a speedy mech, so it's got a 5.8 speed with a big autocannon. That's kind of cool. But what does it pair with those autocannons? Does it pair some mid-range weapons to take advantage of that 12-hex autocannon range that the LBX-20 has? Or does it do something silly and strap it alongside an LRM-15 and ER large laser? Which is exactly what it does. I don't understand that. That's a really good autocannon that should be supported by weapons that are going to maximize that autocannon's efficiency. You need other guns that have a 12-hex range or 15-hex range right there to be more effective. I mean, rip the LRM-15 out of this thing and give me some streak launcher or streak SRM launchers or basic SRM launchers. Replace that ER large laser with a large laser just so I can handle more of the close-range weapons. This thing is so close to greatness. And yet, it's not there because the weapons don't pair well. The best ranges for your LBX autocannon are not going to match with your LRM-15 launcher. Sure, the LRM-15 can soften your target up a little bit on your way in, but those 9 on average points of damage are not going to make the LB-20X's slam feel more devastating. Thankfully, though, the LB-20X does have 3 tons of ammo, so you can carry some cluster and you can carry some solid shot. Because you want to be able to threaten with that big hole punching in there, or you also be going, hey, you're open in like 2 locations. Let's go with a shotgun and make you regret that. This thing really focuses around that LB-20X autocannon, and I find that the other weapons just don't match up well. Which is why, in one of the variants, the LHU-3C, it actually swaps out the LB-20X for a Gauss rifle. That pairs up better with the ER Large and the LRM-15. And interestingly enough, in that version, they actually cut the LRM-15 into 3 separate LRM-5 launchers, which does save 1 ton of weight. So you can actually get some damage more often than none damage, but never quite as much damage as possible. It works out mathematically to be slightly less damage, but slightly more consistent damage. I like the 3C better than the 2B. The 2B, I have the same question. I ask, why should you 2B? That didn't really work out the way I wanted it to. But the weapons don't pair as well as I think they should. Which unfortunately is a very Inner Sphere design philosophy, so the Lao Hu is going to be a basic mech. And I thought we were going to have less basic mechs than this, but apparently I was a little bit mistaken. We still have quite a number of bottom-end mechs. We usually don't have quite as many bottom-end mechs. Okay, next up, the P1 Perseus. Yeah, that's its entire designator. P1. Essentially, this thing could have been called the Orion Omni, but they decided to call it something different in the Free Worlds League. Fine, whatever. It's a 75-tonner with very competent armor. Not quite max, but pretty close. It's got 12 double heat sinks fixed. This is an Omni-Mech again. And it moves at 4.6 with a 300 rated XL engine. The primary loadout consists of an AC-10 Ultra, an LRM-20, an SRM-4, a medium pulse laser, and 4 ER medium lasers and an ER small laser. So very muchly just mimicking the way an Orion fights. The weirdest thing is, those ER medium lasers are located in the legs. I mean, if you look on the artwork, those are leg sponsons that have ER medium lasers in it. Which is kind of weird, because why are you taking away my kick ability if I want to fire all my ER medium lasers? Well, I'm obviously not going to be, though, because looking at the primary loadout, I noticed that it has no extra double heat sinks for all of that weaponry. The 4 ER medium lasers alone more or less cover the heat generated, the heat dissipation. Not quite, but close. So, yeah, I don't understand that loadout very well. The primary loadout is too much guns, not enough dissipation. Alternate config A has an LRM-20 with Artemis 4, a second LRM-20 with Artemis 4, some SRMs with Artemis 4, 2 medium pulsers, and a Guardian ECM. Well, that one makes a better long-range support mech, but nothing else special about it. The alt config B consists of 2 large pulse lasers, a Gauss rifle, an ER large laser, and some extra double heat sinks. Well, I like that variant a lot more. With the extra double heat sinks, I can fire both the ER larges and the Gauss rifle downfield all day, and then if things get in close, I can switch over to using the large pulse to, it's 2 large pulses and 1 ER large laser. Not as good, because now I feel like I want to close in more with my sniper mech now. I wish that had been, I hate to say this, because boy, I'm not a big fan of ER large lasers, but this is the one case I'd put 2 ER larges and a Gauss rifle versus 2 large pulses, which just feels weird to say. But because the ranges, again, are better for creating a kill zone, a kill bracket, with 2 ER larges and a Gauss rifle than 2 large pulses and a Gauss rifle. So, yeah. I'm not really being fond of any of the variants of this thing, am I? Alt config C mounts a light Gauss rifle, so I immediately dislike alt config C. I don't hate it, I just don't like it. Because it also mounts an Ultra AC-10. Now see, here's the thing. A light Gauss rifle has got a very good range bracket on it, out to 25 hexes for 8 damage. But an Ultra AC-10 has got a significantly good range bracket for 2 chances at 10 damage. I mean, the Ultra AC-10 pairs up gloriously with a basic PPC. They both reach 6, 12, and 18 hexes for the both the Inner Sphere and the clan range, actually. They weigh a lot. I mean, they're 13 tons, but the light Gauss rifle is 12 tons. So for 1 ton more, you get a significantly better gun. I do not like the light Gauss rifle at all. Now, it does generate more heat. It generates 3 heat per shell, or 4 heat per shell for the Inner Sphere. So 8 heat versus 1 heat, but still, I'd take an Ultra AC-10 any day of the week over a light Gauss rifle. So it has those 2 big bore guns. Then it has a Streak SRM2, 3 ER medium lasers, and a medium pulse laser. Nothing about the C variant wows me. In fact, it depresses me because there's a light Gauss rifle in it. But it's kind of better than the other variants in some ways. And then there's All Config D, which is an LB-10X, an LRM-20 with Artemis 4, SRM-6 with Artemis 4, 3 ER medium lasers, an ER small, a Guardian Seam, and a big electric probe. It's really just got a lot of Orion feel to the loadouts, autocannons, and multiple kinds of missile launchers. And it's an Omni Orion they call the Perseus. I like Orions well enough. There's nothing in this that makes me think this is a piece of garbage. This is really a very basic mech. Darn it, it's another basic. I was really wrong on that. And I really don't have much more to say about this mech. It doesn't wow me at all. Next up, the TNS-4S Thanatos. Nice name. This is a 75-ton this is a 75-ton mech that moves at 585, so it's a 375 XL engine. It's got 16 double heat sinks and 208 points of armor. So the armor's value is good, but not max. Again, we're looking at like 5 points under on each leg, so it's about 80% armor coverage. I'm just going to randomly guess. I'm literally randomly guessing. I'm not looking it up at all. And what do we have on this mech that's speedy and got okay armor coverage? And it's got significant heat dissipation of 32 points of dissipation. So let's see if we take advantage of that. Well, the first thing I noticed by looking down at the sheet is it has a C3 slave, so I'm already liking this mech. It's got a Guardian ECM suite. Okay, we got another good tick on this mech. It has an MRM-20. Okay, I like MRMs. I understand that they are not the best weapon system in the world, but they're scary. They're a good deterrent weapon system that says, don't move, don't get a bad movement modifier near me or I'm going to make your day bad. It has an ER large laser. It's got the heat to handle it. Still, it's got a heat to... Still, okay. It's got a medium pulse laser and 2 ER medium lasers. Yeah, we can definitely handle the heat from this thing. We got 12, plus 6 more. That's 18, 28, 32. Yeah, we only overheat a tiny bit when we jump. Yeah, it's a good mech. I am going to say, because of the C3 system and the fact that it doesn't make me like retch when I'm looking at the picture of it, and that it's kind of like good overall mech and it's got something that's scary, that this is going to qualify as an awesome mech. Yeah, heat efficient, good armor, definitely faster on the fast side for a heavy mech. Yeah, it's an awesome mech. Now, the LGC-01 Legacy. This may be, in my opinion, one of the prettiest mechs in this book. It's between it or the Razorback. For the Inner Sphere side, that is. This is it's our first assault mech weighing at 80 tons. This is a Word of Blake mech. It moves at 353, so it's actually slow for an 80-tonner in some ways. But that's because it has a 240 standard engine. I think that's our first standard engine in the book. I could flip back and find out, but we're definitely not seeing a lot of standards. We've seen a few. We saw a few, like the Brigand had a standard engine, but that was built by pirates for pirates. Mostly with XLs and lights, though. This is a standard engine. So 353 with 10 double heat sinks. It's a little bit light on the heat sinks, unfortunately, but it's not terrible. It's got 247 points of armor, so maximum, or really... No, maximum armor. Maximum armor. 100% armor coverage. It may have wasted a few points. It has Indo Steel. That is one of the weight savings things, so it's saving 4 tons of weight with the Indo Steel. What does it have for weapons? Well, this thing has 2 ER medium lasers, a Streak SRM-4, an ER small laser, a C3I computer, ding, and then the piece de resistance, twin Ultra AC-10s with 20 shells per cannon. So enough for 10 rounds of full firing combat. And we know we can handle this. That's 12 heat off of the ACs when it fires those. So that's why it's a little bit underheated, but you can fire those AC-10s, mix in the Streak SRM-4 sometimes, fire the Ultra AC-10s and one of the ER mediums. You can bring in your smaller guns, or if you decide to turn the AC-10s down to single fire because you're maybe at really long range, you don't want to waste an extra shell, you can flip in those ER mediums. So it's actually not heat bad. It's not bad at all unless you are double tapping with both cannons and firing all of your other guns at the same time, and the Streak locks. And you jumped. Other than that, it's actually pretty able to handle its heat with enough manipulation. It's good. It's maximum armor. It's scary. It looks awesome. It has a C3I computer. This is going to make Werner Blake very happy. I'm going to call this a superior mech. 18 hexes, bringing those ultras in with something that's got, like, you're pairing with a Whiteflame that's out there brawling. That's scary. That's good and scary. Next up, the TLR-1-0 Templar. Fedcom's brand new off-the-line Omni-Mech that's got a night theme to it. Notice the giant nightly cross on the side of its pauldron. The Templar is an 85-ton assault mech that has 40 tons of pod space. It moves at 4.6 with a 340XL engine. It has 13 fixed double heat sinks and 263 points armor, which at a quick glance looks to be 100% armor coverage as well. So what does this thing have for variants? Since all of those are good check boxes, it's fast for an assault mech. It's fully armored for an assault mech. Almost half its weight is in pod space for guns. And it has 13 fixed double heat sinks. It could be more, but that's 13 fixed, which is not bad. So let's see, what do we have for the configurations? Well, in the primary configuration, we have a large pulse laser, a medium pulse laser, a Gauss rifle, a targeting computer, and 2 ER medium lasers, and a Streak SRM-4. Not my favorite loadout by a long shot, because this is known as just mixing in a sniper weapon with pulse weapons. Now, it does have that targeting computer, which is really awesome, but it doesn't have enough pairings with the Gauss rifle, in my opinion. If that Gauss rifle instead had been like a big bore autocannon, like an LB-20X, I like that a lot more for the variant, because it'd be a point-blank brawler instead of a sniper with brawl weapons. Alt Config A. We're going to pair an ER PPC with an Ultra AC-10, also with a targeting computer. This version has jump jets, a Streak SRM-6, and a Guardian ECM suite. It's got accurate ballistics and energy weapons. It's got a Streak 6 rack. It's not heavily gunned. The problem with Alt Config A is it's not heavily gunned. It's a lot. That's only 3 primary weapons for 40 tons of pod space. That's a bit rough. So the jumping gives it some good flexibility for fighting in cities or mountain terrains or in forests as well. So it's not bad for your flexible movement variant. It's just the problem is it's just lacking a punch at range. Sure, it can do 30 points of damage on a good turn, but so can an awesome. And the awesome is, 500 years older. So the Templar feels like that one's undergunned. Alt Config B has an ER PPC connected with 3 Rack 2s and 2 ER medium lasers. The Rack 2s have 135 shells of ammo, and that's a good number. The 3 Rack 2s. It also has some additional double heat sinks because you're essentially generating 30 points of heat off your primary guns. Because each of the Rack 2s, as far as I'm concerned, fires 5 shells downrange. The ER PPC fires downrange, and that's 30 heat all total. 40 heat because you have the ER mediums if you're joining the ER mediums in. So a lot of heat right there. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4 extra double heat sinks topped into there. So it's got 17 double heat sinks for 34 dissipation. It's not enough, but if you tone down a little bit of the stuff, you can handle your heat over time. Maybe like fire maybe 1 less rack, or fire them at like 4s instead of 5s and stuff like that. You can get some manipulation going on. Still, that one's a fun one because if you're like working with some people that have been opening up holes down the range, this is the one time where throwing machine guns at long ranges feels really good because you're throwing a lot of machine gun shells very far downfield, and that's going to probably get some criticals through those open slots then, which is pretty cool. Now we got the next one is the All-Config C, which is the one I feel is more of a true, like, FedCom mech, in my opinion, because it pairs a LB-20X with an ER-PPC, triple medium a quintet of medium pulse lasers, an ER medium laser, some jump jets, and an extra double heatsink. This one's very heat inefficient. But that's mainly because you're not going to be firing the ER-PPC when you're in with the pulses and the LB-20. So it's got one sniping weapon to kind of fin things off as it closes in, and then it's all about brawling at really good brawl levels. The saddest part about the whole thing with the Templar is there's one variant that's actually really awesome that's not in the book, and that really awesome variant is a unique one called the Tancred, or Tancred. Configured for a specific character, it carries 2 rotary autocannon 5s. I mean, there's more details to it, but quite truthfully, those are tied to a targeting computer, and that's just awesome right there. So yeah, I love that variant. Suddenly it's a custom character variant, which is just really awesome and sad because that's like the variant that should have been built for everybody. Rack 5's tied to a targeting computer would be like glorious and amazing. As it is, I actually think this is a pretty awesome mech. It's just, it doesn't reach the superior level. It's really Alt-Config C that I think makes this mech what it should be. There are a lot more variants also, they're just not in the book. Next up, the AKU-1X Akuma. If you didn't know, Akuma in Japanese means devil or demon kind of like thing. Alright, so obviously this is a Cretan mech. And it's a 90-ton assault mech that moves at 3.5 with a 270 standard engine. Another mech with a standard engine in it, just like the Legacy. It's got an Indosteel chassis, again the same thing. It's got 279 points of armor, which, giving it a quick glance down, is probably like maximum or really darn... Nope, it's maximum. And 13 double heat sinks. 13 double heat sinks seem to be kind of like a trend right now. What does this thing have? Okay, well, it's got an ER-PPC. It's got a medium pulse laser, Streak SRM-4, a basic medium laser, an MRM-30, an LB-10X, and a Streak SRM-6. It's really weird for the loadout of weapons. It's got so many different things that I just wonder about. It's like, why didn't you put in 2 Streak SRM-4s, an extra double heat sink, and so they could be working off the same ammo bin instead of having to have 2 ammo bins, and then you could put in some more LBX ammo if you felt like it, or another basic medium laser, or something. By making the 2 launchers different bore size, or different numbers of tubes, you have to have extra ammo, which just, is a weird rule by Battletech standards. I don't know why they're in just LRM ammo and SRM ammo, and why they can't all draw from the same bins. I don't understand that at all. That's one of those rules do not equal fluff nonsensical things. But it's a weird loadout of weapons. It's just, it feels strange. It's nothing super special for the guns. It's nothing bad about the guns. It's just weird. I mean, it's a lot of missiles on this thing. And that MRM-30 is actually really scary if something stops or gets slow or you get into point-blank range of that thing. That is a very scary weapon. But at the same time, everything feels weird about this mech. It's just, it's not crap. It's not awesome. So I hate to do this. It's basic, and it just, because it feels weird to me. The whole mech just feels like it's like slapped together, and it's not like heavily thought through. It's like this, like it's a gun we can put on here, and another gun we can fit right here, and this goes here, and then yay, missiles everywhere. I don't. It's weird. It's very basic. It feels like an Inner Sphere design of this works, right? Let's have it do things, and maybe it'll keep doing those things and not die immediately because of things. I don't know. Next up, the SGT-8R Sagittaire. This is a 95-ton mech. It moves at 353 with a 285 XL engine. It has 17 double heat sinks, which is not nearly enough because it's all energy weapons. It has 288 points of armor, which is not quite max, but close. And it has a targeting computer. And this is important because that's a very large and heavy targeting computer because, like I said, every gun on this thing is energy, directed energy. So it adds up very quickly. It has 2 rear-mounted medium pulse lasers, which I'm not sure were necessary. aside from the fact that this thing can arm flip, I'm fairly certain, which means you can bring a lot of guns to bear either direction around this thing. There's no hex that's safe from its accurate pulse targeting computer weapons. Yes, that's right. 90% of these weapons are pulse weapons. The only one that's not is an ERPPC, which you only use to fight with when you're closing in. As soon as you get within range, you have 2 large pulses. 1, 2, 3 forward-mounted medium pulses. A small pulse. 2 rear medium pulses. You are a pulse monkey with all of the guns that have -3 now to hit with. So you are an accurate laser light show from hell. This thing is so good, and I am so glad we're getting this one in a pack already. Down the line, we're getting the Sagittaire in a freaking Mercenaries pack. This is a fantastic mech. This mech is beyond insane at times. You will make things die left and right as long as you can close into under that 10 hex range. You really want to be up as close as possible. Still, this base version of the Sagittaire is an amazing, awesome, superior mech that just makes things die with laser fire. Next up, a true Lyran mech if there ever was one. We have the FNR-5 Fafnir. So you know nothing about this mech. It mounts 2 of the scariest gun in the game, potentially. It mounts 2 heavy Gauss rifles. These weapons that have declining ranges, or declining damage over range. But that's okay, because they also have a very long range. The Fafnir mounts 2 of these things that do 25 damage out to 6 hexes, or 20 damage out to 13 hexes. Yes, imagine an AC-20 shell going further than an AC-20 should. Even further than LB-20X can pitch it. Sadly, it only does 10 damage out at 20 hexes. So honestly, I never fire this thing beyond 13 hexes. That's just me. I don't consider it to have a long range. A long range is a waste of a shell, because it only carries 4 shots per ton, so you have to have a lot of tons of this thing. Thankfully, this thing does. This thing carries 8 tons of ammo. Just actually, yeah, it's that 16 shots per gun. That's enough ammo to take those random pot shots. Just, oh, you're a hard to hit number. Bam! Oh, I hit you with a 25-point damage shell. Oh, I'm sorry, you're dead. But that's not all it carries. It has a medium pulse laser and 2 ER medium lasers as backup. No, seriously. This thing, it can fire all those guns at the same time too. It has 10 double heat sinks. It weighs 100 tons. So, sorry, I kind of skipped by a whole bunch of the stuff, didn't I? This thing's 100 ton that moves at 3.5. It has a standard engine. It has Indo Steel. Has 10 double heat sinks, and it has maximum armor. I mean, really maximum armor. It has 307 points, which means it is wasting some armor points, because it's got basic standard armor. It can't have anything else in there because these freaking heavy Gauss rifles take up 11 of the 12 side torso slots. The other slots have case. Because of course they do. And this thing has a Guardian ECM system in order to protect itself from electronics from other people. So that's also good. Still, this thing is very funny. You don't ever want to be near it, because if you're near it, you're losing. This thing is one of the best area denial mechs in the game, because it has a sweeping range of 6 hexes around it. Now, it does have minimums. It has a minimum of 4. But still, a sweeping range of 6 hexes around it, that if someone is in there, they might get erased. And they don't want to be there. Because this thing doesn't just head cap. This thing against the right mechs is center torso capping. The shell goes in and through the center torso, and then possibly out the back armor. I know it doesn't really happen mechanically, but still, nonetheless, you can kind of imagine a shell like this going in, out, and through a stinger. As an example of a mech that should die in one shot from this gun. I mean, even if you hit the leg, it probably dies in one shot with the gun. Because it's so much damage at close range, it just vaporizes light mechs and pop. So, scary. And because it mounts 2 of these things in an unashamedly insane configuration, this thing is a superior mech because, wow, why not? Which is sad, because we're going to be ending on, well, We're ending on the VQR-2A Vanquisher. This is a Word of Blake design that has a C3i computer. So it's got that one thing going for it. It's a 100-tonner with a 300 rated standard engine. Has Indo Steel. It moves at 3.5 and has 16 double heat sinks. It can largely fire all of its guns, but its guns are kind of whatever. It has 2 light Gauss rifles with way too much ammo, 32 shells apiece, 2 ER large lasers, and 3 ER medium lasers. It's nothing to write home about. In fact, it is such a letdown, in my opinion, at looking at this mech after looking at the Fafnir, that I want to rate this thing as depressing, and I'm almost going to. I really don't like the light Gauss rifle because it's such a waste. In this thing, you could take one of those tons of ammo out. You could downgrade your heat sinks a little bit, not a lot. You could downgrade the number of heat sinks. Maybe rip out an ER medium, and you could have 2 Gauss rifles with 2 ER large lasers. No, it's depressing. I hate to end on a down tone, but the Vanquisher is a depressing mech because it's just so much potential in this variant squandered. This thing is so close to being good. It has so many potentials that's like it's quality mech adjacent, and that's what makes it depressing. If it had gone this way, it'd have been better. If it had gone that way, it'd have been better. But no, it went the one way that is just not good. Yeah, the ER large lasers and the light autocannons all line up for the same bracket, that way down range for 8 points apiece, but I'm sorry, 32 points at 25 hexes still does not thrill me. It's probably not as bad as depressing, but the way it makes me feel after coming off the Fafnir makes me rate it as depressing. I am putting my feelings into this mech, and I'm feeling like they are being rebuffed. And that's sadly the point we end on. It's a bit of a downer at the end, isn't it? Anyways, as per usual, I'm leaving a link to the tier list in the description below, so if you feel like going to fill out one, you can. I've never gotten enough people to fill them out to enjoy, seeing what the community says overall. But it's always there's an option. And, yeah, we come to the end of the video. So if you haven't done it already, please be sure to do the YouTube things. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And I will be wrapping this up. This is SleeplessRonin saying sayonara, and we'll catch you next time. If you're still sticking around, there's some videos around me. Probably somewhere. I've probably moved myself around the screen, so I don't know which shoulder they're over or above my head or whatever, but there's some videos there. And now that I'm done talking, there's probably going to be some sword noises right about now.